Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling host JP John Poz. With me today, very special guest, a wrestling legend, over 50 years in the wrestling business. He has done it all, Mr. Les Thatcher. Les, welcome in. How you doing?
Well, thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be with you, and always happy to talk wrestling.
Love that. Obviously, like I mentioned, you've been in the business forever. What have you been doing lately? Anything as far as the wrestling business?
Well, along with Vic Sosa, I do a weekly podcast. We're on the Observer site. Been doing that for over a dozen years with Vic, and I still do some training occasionally, and love doing that. I don't take any more bumps, John, but I still like to work with the young guys and like to work, like to train the guys.
What do you think about the current product just in general? Do you like kind of the direction of where wrestling has gone?
I'm more attuned to WWE's brand currently, especially since Paul has taken over.
Yep.
It's more wrestling opposed to being an acrobatic exhibition, and their storylines are so deep and so good as well. When you look at the bloodline thing, this has been ongoing for almost 2 years. And that's unheard of in this day and time. When you're changing titles, sometimes more to change clothes, for God's sakes,
Yeah.
Everybody's in a rush for everything. But I think no matter if it was 50 years ago or today, when you take your time to tell a story, to me, I tell like a match. I tell kids about a match. It's like you are a book. Turn the pages slow enough that the reader can get the content. Don't go through it so fast, that I'll pick up a word here and a sentence there, but not the whole story. And I think that's the big difference since Vince stepped down and Levesque took over. He's telling the story. And I think it shows what the crowds are drawing with their numbers. And man, it's they've been hot, since this bloodline thing started, I think. And if I were going to start promoting today and wanted a yardstick by which to go, I'd be looking at the WWE before I looked at anything else right now.
It is great. If you actually look at it, Bloodline is like almost like 4 years old. If you really look at it, I mean, because the beginning of it's when he got the Ulufala from his father and his uncle. So that was like, God, that was 2020 when he got that. So it was like quite crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And to me, if there's anything missing today, John, I think it's the little things that make the big things believable or make them work. A quick example, and I see it. If I see it once in a show, it's once too often. But because I'll drive you nuts with details. But let's say I'm going to the top rope, but to drop a knee on you or to splash or whatever, right? I know where I want you. So to me, the obvious thing is I put you there, right? Slam you there, maybe drop a knee to set you before I go up to top. How many times do you see maybe the guy that's going to the top punches the other guy, and then while he's going up, you see this guy scooting across to get in the right place? You're just pulling the illusion. You just showed us how the rabbit comes out of the hat. And it happens, like I say, if it happens once, is once too often. But I see it quite often, The other thing is corners. Everybody works their way to a corner, no matter what's going on. You knock me down the middle of the ring, I'll find a way to get in the corner. And what's the first thing I tell you if I try and teach you to fight? Don't get cornered.
Right, of course. Yeah, don't get backed into a corner. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Why would I put myself there? You can say, well, it's just professional wrestling. But to me, the deal here is like if you're reading a good dramatic novel, you're watching a weekly TV series, you're watching a docuseries like Yellowstone, right? Don't want to miss it. Yep. They draw you in. You and I know it's not real. It doesn't matter, does it? You want to see that. like a good detective novel or something, or a TV series. Why has Law and Order been on for like 25 years?
Yeah.
Right? They hook you. You want to see the next show. We have stopped doing that to a certain degree, I think, because I think with a lot of the young guys, subconsciously they look at it. I hear this so often. Everybody's smart. And if you tell me that, I'm going to say, John, you're not very smart.
Hmm.
Because no, everybody isn't smart. I don't know about you. I'm a huge pro football fan, right? And I've watched the game for years and years. Oh, I know all about it. No, I don't. I just know it from a fan's perspective. Yes, I played Sandlot and Beer League when I was younger. But I'm not, that's a whole nother thing too, So it's, and I think the people want to be engaged. They want to be drawn in. And there again, I think is what the bloodline has done. How many times when Sammy came into that as a mid-card guy, nothing special. I mean, not that his work hasn't changed, but the point is he was just a mid-card guy, right?
Yes, 100%.
He did his part there so beautifully. Every week you're saying, okay, next week they're going to kick his ass, right? Next week they're going to get him. They never did. And in building him for that, they have also made him a stronger babyface. So now he can go with Gunther or whoever, right? He fits. They made him stronger by making him the foil in the bloodline story.
Yeah. Yep.
And of course, both the Uso guys stepped up, and when it got down to getting ready for Mania, when you saw Rock and Roman and Cody and Seth, I thought, this is a master class in promos, for God's sakes, right?
Oh my God, yeah.
You just sit down and watch this. And when I say I'm being drawn in, I'm a tough guy to draw in, believe me. It's been 64 years that I've been playing around with this nonsense they call professional wrestling. So
wow.
I expect more, I really do. And they're giving me what they're doing with the bloodline. Well, the other storylines there as well. It's as close to what it was 50 years ago as it's going to get in this day and age, I think. But I think it also shows that the people want to be drawn in. They don't want it. They don't give a damn. It's all show. Okay.
Right.
But that's what I don't understand. When I was 9 years old, I knew Roy Rogers wasn't really killing all those guys, right? But I wanted to believe. And that's what, and now I don't get to see everybody's shows. I see a couple other shows besides WWE. But I don't hear an audience respond to anybody else the way the people respond to the guys that are being pushed in WWE. It's as positive as you can get,
Yeah, for sure.
It is. And there's a lot of good talent out there, and everybody else could be, well, nobody's going to catch WWE at this point in time. Not in my lifetime, I don't think.
No.
They can do so much better if they followed, not copied what they're doing, but used the same style, to build. But everybody else seems to be in a big hurry. It's like, oh, double part. I got to hurry up. So,
yeah.
And that's more an indie thing I see on the indies more than any place else, right? We got to do 15 spots in 13 seconds. You can't let the people sit there. Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Yeah, Roman.
I say the little things I think are important too. Every time I see a guy, like say I make a comeback on you and you go, and you hit the deck and start selling it, and I turn around, put my back to you and start pandering to the people or strutting or whatever, I can hear my friend Harley race clear as loud as when he and I and Steamboat were doing the training camps together years ago. Harley would see a kid turn his back on his opponent, right? Harley'd say, do you know what would happen if you turned your back on me when you turned back around? What's that, sir? I'd knock you on your ass. That's as insulting as you can get to your opponent, turning your back on him.
Yes. Big time.
Now, a lot of these things you're not thinking about consciously, but if you want to buy into this, subconsciously, something's telling you it's not registering as real, you know? Am I making sense? I hope.
100%. Yeah. Yep. Nailing right on the head. Yeah. If you turn your back in a fight, my God, are you crazy? Like,
Sure.
yeah, you
Sure.
never do that.
No. And there's Jimmy Cornette says it best. You realize why the ring is is elevated so everybody can see. Okay, let's jump out and wrestle on the floor. Hello? But there's some. To me, if I were running a program, the referees would actually have something to do. You and your opponent hit the floor. That's a 20 count. You got 19 to get back in. If you roll in and roll back out, you just broke the count, but I can still count the other guy out. Referees have always been a good part of the show. You know, they can make it or break it at times.
What do you think about leg slaps, by the way? Have you noticed a crazy amount of leg slaps? Do you hate that?
Oh, sure.
Or the thigh slap or the knee slap, like the, yeah.
No, the slaps, yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We did things 50 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever, that weren't real, but we didn't do them 5 times in a row.
Right.
We did it and got away from it. You didn't have time to dwell on it. And like you're talking about, like the slap, right? The leg, or the way Bobby Eaton used to slap his shoulder.
Yes.
In that last one, right? I told a kid, I said, here's the deal. You can get by with that maybe once, but if you stand there 1, 2, 3, boom, 1, 2, 3, an idiot is going to figure this out at some point, right?
Eaton did that so fast, though. Hard to tell with Bobby, because I remember I was talking to Cornette a couple of years ago, did something with him, and he did that punch to me, and he like kind of he did it a little bit slower, obviously. And I was like, oh, he's like, that's the old Bobby Eaton. I was like, yeah, that's what it looked like. I was like, I never knew that. He like kind of slapped it because you could hear it, but he did it so quick.
Yeah,
he never really noticed it.
Well, some guys, because I learned from Pat O'Connor, he used to take and throw a punch like an uppercut. He'd get you in a headlock, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, what he was doing was popping his forearm off his side. The sweaty, you're getting that crack, right? First time I heard him do that, I was just breaking into business, maybe a year in, not even that long. I thought he'd rip somebody's head off. I heard that sucker crack. I thought, oh my God, he's potatoed whoever it was he was with.
Right.
I learned to do it. It works, but I do it maybe twice in a match. Never sit there and keep doing it. Again, a magician sleight of hand, he doesn't go back doing the same thing over and over again, because there's a much better chance of you catching on. And I see how one of the things that we were taught, Ricky Morton posted this on Facebook a while back too, some of the things that makes it different. Watch the match before you. And if they're doing anything you thought you might do, then don't do it. How many matches do you see that doesn't have a dive?
Right. 0 now. Yeah.
You know what I tell young guys? And somebody said, you're using sex as a reference. I said, when you're working with young guys, a lot of testosterone, sometimes they get bored to technicalities. So if you bring up something about sex, you got their attention, right? They'll pay attention. But it's like this. I'll say to a group, how many of you guys are married or have a live-in girlfriend? Raise your hand. Okay. Question for you. You remember the first time you saw her with no clothes on? You saw her all together. Yeah, me too. You remember 300th time? Don't bother to answer, because I know the answer, because my answer and your answer and John's answer are all going to be the same. No, I don't remember the 300th time. And there's my point. you keep seeing the same thing over and over again. The mystery or the mystique or the impact it has on you diminishes quite a bit. And if you're seeing it in every match, I don't care if I never see a table break, right? I really don't.
Ton of them. Yep.
Yep. At the right time, the right thing, it works. Everything works, but it's a timing issue. It's not, let's do this, John, but let's do it if it makes sense in perspective.
Absolutely. And Shawn Michaels used to do that, the leg slap, but no one really noticed it because he only did it once when it was the Sweet Chin Music.
Right.
That's it. No one really noticed.
Did you ever see the Benoit Regal match from the Pillman show?
Yes.
Yeah. I use it as a training tool. Tom Pritchard does as well.
Yep.
Maybe a couple other guys do. We were there. Tommy and I were live in the building. But my point is this. Excuse me. A couple days later, one of my guys that was on the show, one of the kids that I trained was on the show, was in the dressing room with Regal and Chris when they went over their match, right? He said, I saw Regal pull a chair up by Chris and say, Chris, you're going over. What do you want to do? He said, so I wanted to hear what these two guys are going to say, And Chris said, well, what if we do this? And Regal said, well, change that up. And you remember the spot we did a couple of years ago and such? Yeah. If the big word here is if it fits, we'll throw it in. He said it. And then Regal pulled his chair and went back to the other side of the room. I said, and? What do you mean, and? And they went out and stole the damn show, didn't they? Blew the roof off the building. They talked about it, what, 30 seconds, a minute? They're pros. They're craftsmen. There are very few of them left.
Yeah, so true. And Dr. Tom said no wasted motion that whole match.
No, and it was a wrestling. It was a competition between two athletes. And if you can hear, if you were in that building, right, realize there were so many top guys there. And
oh my God, yeah.
They start wrestling, and a couple idiots way in the back are boring. We didn't throw them out, but we should have. But anyway, but as that match built, right, I could feel it. At the end, if you got the right, you can see me jump up on the apron, right, and hug Benoit. I wanted to be in that. I knew what was coming. I knew what was the way they were building it, what the finish. You could feel the people coming. Now, the dressing rooms for that show were in the basement. And before they hit the finish, I looked over toward the dressing room, and the guys were all up pushing each other out of the way to watch the damn match, right? And when they hit the finish, that place exploded, right? It blew the roof off. And it was from here, from their heart. That's the difference. You can be a great acrobat, a great athlete, and you can sit down and tell, I'm going to do this and this and this, and that's great. But none of it is great if it's not done at the proper time. And that masterclass. Yeah. And that's today I see so much done with why? Why they just do that for? I had the craziest story, and we'll talk about anything else, but I want about blood. I won't embarrass who I've seen a couple guys in the same company, like they wanted to advertise. Let me saw my head in half, right? I wanted to strangle him, right? And I said something to a buddy that worked in the company. I said, man, I lost my mind when I saw that. He said, oh, the producer forgot to tell the cameraman to pull away. I said, never mind the producer or the cameraman. When we got juice, we had to be able to hide it because there was no cameraman. Plus, how about the few thousand people in the building, for God's sakes?
Right.
You want to know? Again, You know, I don't know if you watch America's Got Talent, but some great magicians are on there. I love it. I don't want to know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
One of my students is a hell of a magician, Nigel McGuinness.
Yes.
Right? I don't know how I've stood right there and watched him. How the hell do you do that? But that's why it's entertaining to me, because I don't know.
Yeah, Nigel's awesome. Don't want to know either, right? Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Nigel, by the way, such a great wrestler. I love that he was able to kind of come back and return this past year. But one of my all-time favorites, especially ROH, who's Ring of Honor champion for over a year. He was the best.
When I saw him and Dragon in the little comeback match, I said, yes, okay. I said, I saw a wrestling match. How'd that happen? How'd that get thrown in there?
Yeah, well, probably the greatest technical wrestler versus a British guy who's a great technical wrestler. It's like Benoit versus Regal all over again.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? The thing that makes them so good, the thing that made Benoit and Regal so, their passion, their heart, their love, not just, I don't want to just get out in front of people and make them yell, but this is who I am, is what I do. I think that's lost in it. Well, and I think part of the reason it's lost, John, is because they come in knowing that it's a show. So that's all they expect it to be, is a show. When I got on a Greyhound bus in February 1960 to go to Boston to learn my craft, if you'd have asked me if wrestling was real, I'd have said yes. 19 years old. I didn't know what to expect, but I had no idea it was a work. I had no idea it was a show. And it's funny when I talk to classes and tell, and I say, I started my training in February of 1960. Got my first match July the 4th, 1960. And they'll say, when they smarten you up? July the 4th, 1960.
Wow.
What happened in between? Well, I got my ass handed to me a few times, but I learned to respect the people and the business. And I think that's a big difference, really. Talk to the guys that are running schools full time now, and a lot of these guys come in for, well, how do I do this dive, or how do I, they don't even care if they learn a hold, right? Just, can I do this dive?
Got to learn the basics, right? Basics and fundamentals first.
Sure. But it's like, well, I want to do that cool thing, right? The sunset flip or whatever. It's not a carnival ride. This is a business. And you start, it's like learning anything else. I'll tell you what, when a lot of guys come in, especially now, realizing it's predetermined, so they come in with the idea, oh, it's all a show. I can be an actor. Till they take a couple bumps. And then, no, wow, it's not as easy as I thought it was going to be. No, it's not. To be really, really top flight at this, you have to live it. It has to be your life. It does. I mean, you can't. I tell kids that are on the indies, I say, unless you're in the ring 3 times a week minimum with somebody else that's pretty decent, you can't get it. I mean, when I started, once I broke in 3-4 nights a week, and then finally you get to where you're going 5 or 6 nights a week. And the old timers would tell us back then, kid, it's going to take you 5 years to catch on. So these guys that are working once a week, once a month, they're right where they're going to ever be. It's just, they're not willing to put in the work. There's the problem. Problem. Well, with Nigel, you hear this story from a lot of trainers. Guys say, oh, I'd like to come to your school, but you live 50 miles from me, or your school's 50 miles from me, or this or that. And I'll say, well, you know what? Nigel McGuinness crossed the Atlantic Ocean several times to train, right? Because he could only get a 6-month visa each time. And at the time, the first time he went back to England after he started training, he sent us over an email saying, my God, I went to a couple places here. The one place said they were training and they had no ring. They were
Whoa.
on mattresses on the floor. He said, I'm afraid to try anything here. I'm afraid I won't be healthy enough to come back to the States. But yeah, he had to make a round trip over that Atlantic Ocean at least 3 times before he had his first match.
Wow, damn, that's dedication. That's somebody that really wants to do this.
Yes. And you know what? Those are the guys that are good at it. I mean,
Yeah,
they are. Like Cornette, he was a huge fan. I was a fan, I fell in love with it when I was 9 years old. And I guess it's been my adult life, basically, except for some help working with bodybuilders and being competitive at bodybuilding and drag racing. That's the only other 2 things that I gave a damn about in my adult life. And that's probably a horrible thing to say, but I don't say it's the only thing, but the only things I wanted to pursue in terms of a career, or something like that. So, and kids talk about living a dream. And I thought, here I am, 84 years old and still living my dream. So
yeah, you're still involved in the business after
don't
all
get
this.
any better than that.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you mentioned obviously the Brian Pillman memorial shows. How was that to put together? Because it's WCW, it's WWF, it's ECW, and obviously it's all around the unfortunate passing of Brian Pillman. But how do you get that show even together to do the memorial show?
Beats the hell out of me. When I first started, right? And I knew Benoit and Jericho were coming, right? And of course, Steve Austin, and because he was Brian's partner when he was in WCW, but Steve at the time was in WWF, WWE, and so anyway, in talking this for the first show, Dave Meltzer had called me, and he said it's a shame you don't have somebody from ECW. Then you would have the trifecta, right? And I got fun. I got thinking about it. Well, first of all, Al Snow, who just lived up the road in Lima, Ohio, was at ECW at the time. He had been loaned out from WWF, ECW. And Chris Candido and I had a good relationship from Smoky Mountain. So I'd never met Paul Lee at the time. So I called Chris and I said, hey, how about this? Check with Paul and see what you can do to get you and Al Snow to work the first Pillman show. So that's how I got all 3 to start with. And then it just fell in line. I didn't, the crazy thing, we set out to do one little show and it grew every year, for God's sakes. John, I had young guys calling me, offering to pay me to be on that show.
Wow.
I had a couple old timers. Like for the last year, we had shows. We started like with photos of the stars at noon of the day of the show, right? The first match at basically the showcase for the developmental guys started at 5:30. Matches took a little break, and at 7:30 started the main show. So there was something going on from noon till virtually almost midnight on the day of the show. And the people, I didn't know what was going to happen. That first year we were in Brian's junior high school gym, and there were people lined up around the building. We had to turn away about over 400 people that night. We couldn't get them in the gym. I had no idea that was going to happen.
Right.
And like I say, at first we thought, okay, do this one show. And then after we dropped everybody the next day off the airport, I'm sitting in the gym and I'm thinking, we can do another one. And then the second one and the third one. And then by the fourth one, Brian's widow had remarried. And the guys realized that's the thing too. The guys were giving up their day off, right, to be with their families. Their companies paid for the flights. We put them up in the hotel and fed them. And but they worked for nothing. and we had great matches. It was, I mean, I never told. It's like, what do you want? The first year, you know, like Benoit and Jericho were the main event. What do you want? I said, I want you guys to go out there and blow the roof off the place. Do whatever you think you want to do. What you want to do. Do what you do best. It's on you. And of course, we had guys from all three of the major companies. Plus, we had some of the top independent guys, and you knew everybody wanted to be the best. But nobody. It wasn't like I'm going out there and do better than you, right? But everybody worked together. It was great. I mean, it really was. The first year, Terry Taylor had come to watch, and we're sitting up the bleachers and watching Benoit and Jericho, and he leaned over and he said, "Damn," he said, "these guys are working harder for you for nothing than they do for us for money."
Wow.
I said, "Well, the only thing that's on the line here is their reputation. They don't get paid for that." So, but yeah, I love those shows. Everybody busted their hump. They really did, John. Everybody, the volunteers, the wrestlers, everybody just worked hard. Funny story, the year of the Benoit Regal match, just incredible. And how do you wrestle? Scotty. They worked and got blood. Nobody told them to. Right. So I hear this late. Then they get back to Philly, and Paul jumps all over Raven. The hell you doing? You guys are going to be the top in our show, and you get blood on the damn. He said, and Scott, Raven said, "You didn't have to follow Benoit and Regal. We did."
Yeah.
that was his answer.
Smart though, right? If you're gonna follow him, you gotta put some blood in. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, everybody worked so hard. They did. It was. I loved doing those shows. I really did. We ended up raising right at $120,000 on the 4 shows for the family.
Nice.
So
very good. When you're doing that, right, and Paul Lee complains or whatever, do you ever get heat from like Vince or JR or Heyman directly saying like, "Hey, why did this guy lose?" Or why did any
no,
for that?
No, but well, you know, the only thing I can say is apparently I've earned those people's respect to trust me with, you know, putting the wolf in the hen house with the chickens, so to speak, I guess.
Right.
But yeah. I didn't know. All I could do was ask, right? And once we got started, it was good, and it just rolled from there. It was it was a lot of work. We had a committee, and the committee started meeting once a week at the gym at my place, 7 months before the show. You know, set up transportation and the hotels and Lord, I talk about WrestleMania. That was our little piece of that. Yeah. But it was, I'm proud of the guys that worked it. I'm proud of the volunteers. Everybody just gave their all. They did. It was just, those shows, well, it was special for varying reasons, right? That first year we didn't know what to expect and turned the crowd away. The second year, is when Mark Curtis was fighting cancer, right? And he called 2 or 3 weeks before the second show, because he was going to referee the main event. The main event was going to be Conan and excuse me, Ray against Malenko and Benoit, and he was going to referee the main event. And so anyway, I'm at the gym, we're training, and Mark's wife's on the phone. Pam was talking. I thought, oh my God. So I get on the phone, and she said, his weight's dropping. We're going to take him to the hospital to get them, you know, to kick his weight back up and to put some vitamins in him. But I wanted to call you and let you know. And he's in the background. Yeah. Tell him I'll be there for the show. And I said, just tell him to get his ass to the hospital and get well. Never mind the show. Tell him I'll be there for the show. So he came. And I decided, I said, I want you to referee Terry Taylor and Tom Pritchard. It'll be a little slower match. Well, you don't think, I said, bear with me here. I want you to get through this, right? So he went out and refereed their match. I was doing the ring announcing that year. And so I go to the ring for the main event. And guess who's coming down the aisle to referee? Mark Curtis.
Yep.
He got in the ring. I said, can you do this? He said, well, you're going to stay out here and watch, aren't you? I said, yeah. He said, well, if I can't, you can carry me to the back, can't you? I said, yeah, I can do that. What a guy. I mean, he really was. What a great human being. But that's the kind of thing, you know. Dean Malenko announced his retirement at the 4th Pillman show. And then Benoit and Regal had that great match in the 3rd show. So something special. It seemed like not something we'd scripted. It just, you know, something about the show brought out the good
organically.
Yep.
Yeah. Did that show or those shows, did that lead to WWE having the HWA kind of agreement to be a developmental, or was that?
Well, I was actually with WCW before WWE.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. WWE was first to approach me about signing with them. And so we'd kind of come to an agreement, just no paperwork had been done, right? So I'm just sitting there waiting. And my phone rings, and it's Gary Juster from WCW. He said, JJ and I were just sitting here talking about expanding the training, and your name came up, and somebody said, well, I think he's signed with WWE. And he said, have you? And I said, no, not yet. Nobody's giving me any paper. Well, don't until you talk to us. We'll have a plane ticket for you Friday. I want you to fly in and sit down and talk to us. So I did. Excuse me. And their offer was better. So I signed with them. Of course, what I didn't know is, you know, they were coughing up money then bad, you know, business falling off. So it was just good for a little over a year, you know. And so then they started cutting back on everything. So they pulled the contract. And I don't know, maybe a few weeks later, a month later, my phone rings and I get JR. And he told me, he said, we're going to have to, we've given a developmental to Memphis, but they're not doing with it what we expect. And we gave them a deadline. And I don't think, in fact, I know they're not going to improve by the deadline. So you hold tight, because the minute that deadline hits, there'll be a contract in the mail for you here. So that's how that happened. And
then when did it kind of go away? When OVW really becomes like the main proving
ground?
Well,
they were downsizing to appease the stockholders at the time. And they'd let some office staff go and some of the talent. And since I was the newer of the 2 training facilities, and on top of that, Danny had borrowed a fair chunk of money to improve his gym and then move to a better, you know, place. So he was into them for a loan as well, but again, Danny had been there longer. So I assumed, you know, it would be us to take, you know, to get the cut. But yeah, it was a good run. It really was. Well, Vince had offered, I did magazines for Vince back in the late 70s. I did a Mid-Atlantic magazine for the Crockett office called Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. And then George Napolitano was shooting a lot of pictures for Vince at the time, and they talked about it. And George contacted me and said, we'd like you to do, you know, a magazine for us using the same format, the same artist and everything. So I did 5 issues for Vince there. And excuse me, then in 85, they flew me up. This is when he first started his run, taking over the country. George Scott was his booker at the time. And George and I had worked together in the Carolinas. So they flew me up and offered me spot to take over all the promos. At the time, they were doing the promos in a different town every night, right? They had the soundproof tents, so you're going to be on the road all the time. And it was a good offer, but I had just moved back. I was moving back to Cincinnati to take care of to help my mom. My dad had passed away about a year and a half earlier, right? So I had mentioned to Vince that I wanted to live in Cincinnati, but he wanted me to live in Stanford. He said, "We'll move your mom to Stanford." I wasn't going to go over that with him, but she had the same next door neighbors for God knows 30 years, right? She's comfortable there. Why would I put her in Stanford where she doesn't know anybody? And I'm going to be on the road 7, 8, 9 days at a time. It just won't fly. So I can say it was a good offer, but I passed it up.
And you know what JR says about Stamford, Connecticut, right?
Well,
overpriced hellhole.
Well, Cornette said basically the same thing, only a little rougher around the edges.
Yeah. You don't want to have to move her up there of all places. It's way too busy.
Right. No, I sure didn't. But
when you look at HWA, right, I think a lot of people remember it fondly. I always think about like the guys that are there for a little bit and then they end up in WWE. You know what I mean? Like Umaga. You know what I mean? Like when he's or ECMO. When he's going to the Island Boys deal, right? They went through there. It's kind of a cool little thing if you look at it through history. It's like, where were they before WWE? And then you look a lot of times HWA at one point.
Yeah. Oh, I had a hell of a crew, John. I really did. I've said this all along. My cruiserweight roster could have been put on SmackDown or Raw, and they wouldn't have missed a beat. I mean, seriously, I had a good crew all over. I mean, but the cruiserweight guys were, collectively a hell of a crew as well. But yeah, it was a great experience. It really was. I enjoyed it very, very much working with the guys. And of course, the biggest down thing there was Russ Haas died in Cincinnati in December the 15th, as a matter of fact. Yeah. Russ was such a good guy too. That was such a bummer. But yeah, I had a good crew of guys. I mean, not only the guys from WWE and WCW, but also my own, guys. Well, Nigel and Shark Boy and Matt Stryker, and we're all there at the time too. So I talk about it. My problem was I had too many good guys, and I hate doing like 3 ways and 4 ways and all that, but I was, because I had to get everybody out there and let them work, right? So
right,
that's the way it was. But yeah, it was a great time. I look back and I still want to do some of it. Like I say, you want to hire me to do a training camp today, I'm ready. I want to do it. But yeah, it's been a great life. It really has. Everybody says I wouldn't change a thing. And hell, I could probably tell you a million things I'd change, little things, right? But overall, I've been living my dream. So
when you're doing HWA, right, and that's going on, who's the point of contact? Is it Johnny Ace or is it Jim Ross? As far as like, hey, this guy's coming up to WWE, or hey, this guy, I want to see what this guy's got, or whatever.
They made that decision. We did our TV at OVW. We did our TV on Sunday.
Right.
Yeah, yep. Danny did his on Wednesday night. We did ours on Sunday. And then he sent a copy of his and ours up to Stanford for them to look at, right? And then they might call and say, we've got a ticket for so-and-so waiting at the airport. We want to get a look at him at SmackDown or Raw or whatever. And during that time, they would, like, sometimes they had meetings like there'd be Danny Davis, Jimmy Cornette, myself, Dr. Tom, Johnny Laurinaitis, JR. And, they say, we're looking at so-and-so, what do you think? Is that, you think that guy's ready or not ready, and that sort of thing. But honestly, I don't know how they actually ended up when they would call somebody up. It had a lot to do with the writers back then. I think more, like a writer saw this guy that reminded him of Gregory Peck or some movie stars. Well,
Right.
you have to look at him, right? And we'd say, really? We're not. But yeah, it was. But we had, out of our crew, Lance Cade, Charlie Haas, Jamie Noble, Shannon Moore. Who else? Who else? Quite a few more that got shots up top. Jamie, it was a hell of a worker. Every time I see him in his business suit out there yanking guys around, I've said before, I said, that agent is probably a better worker than anybody he's pulling around out there.
I remember when he had that small run in Ring of Honor when he was actually the Ring of Honor world champion. I was like, man, now everybody gets to see how good this guy is. He's having like 45-minute classics every night. He was great.
He was a smaller version of Benoit, honestly.
Yes. Yep. And it's funny, WCW, remember WCW had him in that like mask pretending he was Chinese or whatever, or Japanese for whatever they were doing.
Yeah.
Jamie's son or whatever. Yeah, they were like, what? This is the guy you had? He's great.
Yeah. He didn't need a gimmick. I mean, he really didn't. He could wrestle his ass off. He really could.
Just they put on a little Hank Jr. He'd come out. He'd be James Gibson. He was great. He was perfect.
The funny thing is, he tried to clean. If you hear the promos he did when he was up in the main roster, right?
Yep.
He was trying to be everything but himself, right? And one day, Brian Adams was there, and Brian was helping me with the dressing room and stuff. We heard Jamie talking about, and my daddy said this and that. And I looked at Brian and I said, there's the damn voice we need on camera. Never mind him trying to sound like a Harvard professor, right?
Yep.
So we start working, and that's how we came up with the Redneck Messiah, right?
Perfect.
Jamie by God Noble.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, then he obviously he kind of made it a little bit louder, a little more impactful, but he'd be like, idiot. Yeah. He was great.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great hand. Yeah, I feel like maybe people don't appreciate how good he was in ring.
Yeah, it's a shame that there's a lot of great workers that never get to show their wares at the top of the industry for some reason, And I'll tell you, the general manager of Raw is a hell of a worker.
Yeah, Adam Pearce, NWA champion. Yes,
Yeah,
Scrap Daddy himself. Yeah.
Yeah, he's. I've told him. I said, you could have fit in my era or this era. You transcend the whole thing. I mean, he's that good. He really is. I'll tell you the truth. He's the best damn general manager I've seen on WWE/WWF, because I got so tired of seeing the evil general managers or the stupid general managers.
Yep.
So that's the thing now. They're trying to sell the product as something more than a show.
Yep. Yeah, I like what they're doing with Pierce too, because it's much more like not ridiculous. Because sometimes like Teddy Long, I like Teddy Long, but he would be like, "You're gonna fight the Undertaker," and it was like, he was like so overly dramatic. Or right. Bischoff, who was great, but he was the evil heel. Like Pierce is cool. It's like it's like much more realistic. He's very straightforward. Very like this is what the way it's gonna happen. Yeah. He has to find people or whatever. Yeah, much more realistic.
When Scott Armstrong was refereeing for WWE, there were times I'd say, who's the best worker in the ring? Who? The referee. He's better than either one of the other guys.
Right. Yeah.
Now, the best technical worker I think I've ever seen in my life, Brad Armstrong.
Heard that before. I've heard that many times.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Why Brad?
If you say what looks good as a drop kick, find a Brad Armstrong tape and watch it. How about watch Brad Armstrong? Just watch Brad Armstrong. Hell of a talent. And
side Russian leg sweep.
never utilized because he wasn't a good promo guy. Isn't that crazy? His brother Brian could talk his butt off, and his
Oh my
dad
God,
could.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, and well, when when Brad first started, I was down the Gulf Coast then, right? And he didn't get a chance to talk much there because he was just starting, absolutely. And him and his dad were working a lot of tags, so Bob, did all the promos. And so when he started doing Smokey, and the first time he came out to do a promo with me, he said, "Okay, you're gonna have to carry me." I said, "Yeah, sure." I thought he was teasing, and he got stuck with about a minute left, and I covered it, and I started to realize he's not a good promo. He's just, for whatever reason, right? But one hell of a wrestler. One hell of a wrestler.
Unbelievable in ring. Yeah, it's just so great. I was watching not that long ago, Eaton versus Armstrong from WCW. It's not really a throwaway match, but they gave him, I think it was 12 minutes. It was a decent amount of time, but it wasn't like they were really pumping up the match. But it was just
Right.
like, wow, I was like, wow, that might have been the best match on the whole show.
Yeah. He was a hell of a hand and a good kid. He really was just a good human being. I never looked at Brad as a kid. He was just one of the boys. I mean, a great sense of humor. But yeah, talented. John, I think I've been blessed in the years that I've been in the business. I've been able to lock up with some of the best ever, period. I have shared a microphone with Gordon Soley, Bob Cottle, Lance Russell, Jim Ross, and I think that must be Mount Rushmore. If it's not, it should be.
Yep.
And, at my Hall of Fame induction, I said, if you can't learn, you got to learn something from those people, right? If you don't, you're a complete friggin' idiot. So,
yep.
I've been blessed to work with some of the masters of the microphone, masters of the ring. My God, yes. There's sometimes I think, this world's driving me nuts. I'm ready, God. And then at other times, I want to see some wrestling.
Yes. Always got to see some wrestling. So as we head towards the wind down here, we head towards the finish. What is your favorite part of the business? Like, you were talking about obviously wrestling, training, owning your own organization, doing all this other stuff, but also commentating, magazines.
Everything, I guess. Colt Cabana, I've been on his show a couple of times, and a couple of years ago, out at the Hall of Fame induction weekend, I was on. He said, we're both like entrepreneurs. And I said, yeah, I guess. I said, but it wasn't like I went looking for something to do. It was like something was laid out there. And I said, well, yeah, I'd like to try that, I wrote magazines, articles and stuff a lot of times, when Kirby and Hall and I were together as the cousins, to get us some PR, in the magazines. Okay, I'll write stories about other guys if you give us some publicity as well. So I got to doing the how that got started is, let me start back with television. I was wrestling up in the Maritimes in 1970 for a dear friend of mine, Rudy Kay, who had been tag team partners and lived next door to one another in the Carolinas. And, when you're out on the road and killing time, you talk about God knows everything, right? And once I met Gordon Soley and got to know him, I thought, I'd always thought I'd like to be a rock and roll disc jockey like Wolfman Jack or something like that, right?
Yep.
I said, I'd like to do wrestling if I could do it like Soley. And so anyway, so Rudy called me and said, hey, I'd like you to come up wrestle for me for the summer up in the Maritime provinces. So I went up. And so anyway, his announcer had family in Toronto. And a member of the family passed away. And he had to fly back to Toronto to take care of, some of the, I don't know what all it was, arrangements. And so anyway, we wrestled in Moncton, where we lived on Monday night. Then we went to Halifax on Tuesday for a house show, Halifax TV Wednesday morning. So Rudy calls me Monday afternoon. He just started shooting the breeze and then said, you know, when we were riding around in the Carolinas, you were talking about you'd like to try broadcasting like Gordon Soley. And I said, yeah. He said, well, bring a coat and tie when we go to Halifax tomorrow. I said, why? He said, because you're going to get the chance. He said, my commentator had to go back to Toronto. And Rudy was known, and his brothers, for being Rivers, right? And I'm thinking, okay, this is a joke. And you're going to have me come dressed up the TV station on Wednesday morning and say, we got you, didn't we, right? I thought he was joking. He finally convinced me, no, you're going to do this. So that Wednesday morning, I sat down at a microphone. I had never cued in and out of a segment, never opened a show, never done anything like that in my life before. And we were off to the races. So I was only supposed to do a few weeks. And like after the third week, he called me and he said, look, you're doing a good job. I'm going to just let you go ahead and finish up the season. I'll add extra to your pay. And I'm going to let the other guys stay in Toronto. I said, okay. So we did, finished out the season. He wanted me to come back the next year and just skip wrestling and help him in the office, do the program and help produce TV show and everything. But at the time, I'd only been wrestling 10 years. I still had gas in the tank and still wanted to wrestle. So I said, no, I'll pass on it. So anyway, long story short, came back to the States, made a couple of different jumps. And Danny Miller and I ended up getting sent out of Tampa to Charlotte to be the number 2 babyface tag team. And so one day I was in the office there, and Lord Littlebrook was in there, who I know from different places, but he had been up in Canada with us too the summer before. And he said to Mr. Crockett, he said, why isn't Les on your TV? And Mr. Crockett said, well, Brooke, he is on my TV. No. He said, I don't mean wrestling. I mean as a commentator. He said, well, I don't know he did that. Well, he did a job for Rudy Kay last summer. And Mr. Crockett said, well, you never told me. I said, didn't think you'd want to know. Well, let's give it a try. Okay. So that's how, just that started. Looking at I was in Mr. Crockett's office looking through these like autograph books. They said, well, like a picture of a wrestler, right, with a little thumbnail sketch, right? And you could have signed autographs. And I'm looking through it, and I said, you don't do these anymore, Mr. Crockett? He said, well, so-and-so was here, and he did those. No, we don't do them anymore. He said, why don't you do one? I said, do one. He said, well, we got all these pictures here and stuff. You want to try to throw something together, put it together, and if I like it, we'll get it printed, and I'll cut you in. That's how I got started doing magazines, and the one thing led to another. Well, the training, I had no, J.J. Dillon will tell you, he pulled my coattail when he was young. Scott Tacey will tell you the same thing, which I pulled somebody's coattail too. Everybody pulled somebody's. So I never considered myself a trainer, but I was at the time competing in bodybuilding myself and training bodybuilders. Cincinnati, Bob Harmon, the original beautiful Bobby, the Cincinnati boy, called me. He said, this guy's got a wrestling school and an idiot for a trainer, and he's about to lose these kids that he's got coming if he doesn't get a decent trainer. I said, okay, but why are you telling me? Well, you could be his trainer. I said, Bob, you're out of your mind. I don't want to be a trainer. He said, they're having a show across town next Saturday night. He said, meet me and go to the show with me and talk to me about this and see what you think. John, I had never seen an independent wrestling show before in my life. And I saw this one. I thought, oh my God, this is not good, right? And I saw this one kid go out in the ring and grab a chair and take it back in the ring with him. And I could tell the way he was holding the chair, he didn't know what to do with it. And sure enough, he didn't. He nailed his opponent and rung the guy's bell enough. The guys walking around in a daze, they had to go out and help the guy out of the ring. Now the promoter and the guy that owns the school is Bob's sitting next to me, and the promoter. I leaned over to Bob. I said, this kid don't know what he's doing. How long has this kid been training? Bob come back. He said, he's been to 4 sessions. I thought, oh my God. So I decided right then, okay, I don't know if I'll do this but somebody's got to straighten this out because this is all crazy, right? That's how I got started training guys. So it wasn't like I went around looking to do these things, right? It's just they were there. And I happened to be able to do them all pretty decent. So, and here we are.
Love it. Going over your entire 64-year run in the business. Can anybody follow you on social media? Where can everybody find you? Do you do a lot of social media?
I'm on Facebook and X. Yeah. You can
Just Les Thatcher.
Yeah. And you got my email address. If somebody is interested in me doing a one-day seminar, or I enjoy doing the weekend camps, John, because you get to know the kids better. They get relaxed more the longer they're around you, and you just get more done over 2 full days, you know. So if anybody's interested, they can contact me, Les Thatcher 28 at gmail.com, and I'll be more than happy to send them out the information and let them know what they can expect from me. And it's strictly hands-on. I mean, I don't sit in a chair and point here or there and point there. So, but I love to do it. And I've taught a few of the better guys a few things once or twice. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, Les, thank you so much for all the time tonight. Really appreciate it.
John, I don't know if I bored you to death for this period of time or not.
No, definitely not. Love it.
Thank you. And I enjoyed talking to you. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Yes, let's do it. Definitely.
All right.